My mom made a career change in her 50s into the startup world. She was a nurse for 30 plus years. I went from nursing to Silicon Valley health technology remote work. And it
What?
wound up being the best thing that ever happened to her career.
Anybody else have work up in the air and curious about what the future holds, maybe even looking to reinvent themselves? Then join in. Let's do this. All right. Welcome back into Reinvention, my friends. And everyday change seems to be accelerating. And I've been getting a lot of comments and questions sent in from listeners who want even more guidance about how to navigate the future of their work and advice about how to make smart long-term decisions so we might actually feel secure about the future. And one of the questions that I've been thinking a lot about lately is, in a world being reshaped by AI and automation, what are the skills that actually matter? Like, what separates the people who thrive from the people who struggle? And perhaps even more importantly, what should we be teaching the next generation as they enter a workforce that's changing faster than ever before? I mean, this is a huge issue. So my guest today has a unique perspective on that question. Over the last 2 decades, he's worked with more than 10,000 college students, helping them launch and run real businesses, manage teams, sell, lead, solve problems, and ultimately learn lessons that most classrooms simply don't teach. So we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, leadership, career development, and what he's learned from watching thousands of young people succeed or even fail in the real world. So Sean Phelps is the president of College Works Painting, one of America's greatest workplaces. Very cool. And he's currently writing a book on what he believes is the most overlooked ingredient in success: accountability. So Sean, before we jump in, I just want to welcome you to the show. Welcome into Reinvention.
Thanks. I'm super excited to be here and hopefully help out the listeners.
Yeah. Oh, I think even the word accountability and how you frame that is interesting. But before you started your career where you're at right now, you were an intern at College Works when you were 18. And then you left and spent some time in the startup world, and you helped build a venture-backed fintech company that grew to more than $1 billion in assets under management. But then you eventually returned to College Works, where you now serve as president. And a big part of the job has been coaching thousands of young people who are just starting out. And you've developed a unique perspective, a front row seat into what really drives performance, growth, and success. And man, I got to tell you, Sean, like, so many of my friends and colleagues have kids entering the workforce or they're already in it. And it's so radically different than when we did it. And I want to start off with kind of a bigger picture question. When you look out on the horizon at the young professionals who are thriving right now versus the ones who are struggling, what's the biggest differentiator that you're seeing?
One of the things I notice a lot is the ability to see the entire picture, the ability to understand all of the stakeholders in whatever it is that you do: employees, coworkers, supervisors, customers, the general public and the economy. How does each decision and what I do in my role impact everyone? I think people can be too narrow in focusing on achieving one particular metric and maybe lose sight of the impact that they're having on everyone, all the stakeholders.
How does a young person learn how to do that? Doesn't that just like come from experience and getting out into the workforce? I mean, a 23-year-old just out. I mean, if a lot of my listeners have kids this age, and like, that sounds great, right? But that sounds like something that just comes from a lot of experience. Are there ways, with the work that you're doing now, where you can train people, young people, to think differently about like what's actually happening in the workforce?
Yeah, I think now that we have enough information, and I mean, the economy is moving so fast and information is so readily available, it's a lot easier, I think, to teach and to be able to pull from stories. This is what happened over at this company, or this is this person in this role. I talk a lot about day-to-day people that have done what they want to do and comparing that. Well, this person over here, whatever, Elon did X, Y, and Z, or this business was successful because of A, B, and C, or this business failed because of this. And so there's so many examples and stories to pull from. I think when people hear an analogy that makes sense and clicks for what they're going through, it's a lot easier to learn that information and being able to pull those stories together.
You mentioned like people that know what they want to do, or that they have an idea of a career path that they want to take. Like, how important is that right now? Given AI and automation, a lot of the guests that I've had on have talked about, this notion of finding your passion and then using AI tools, to make it happen. There's, a lot of the VCs that I've talked to on the show talk a lot about, well, success is more possible than ever before because of these tools if you turn towards it. And it's an opportunity to kind of find out what your purpose is, what your passion is. And even before we jumped on, you mentioned, Paulo Coelho, is kind of someone that I resonate with, an amazing author that's definitely more of a spiritual author, very, very famous. But what is your take on that, right? When you're working with all these young professionals, like, are you talking to them about, like, what do you really want to do? Like, question of who am I, and what is my role? Like, are you inputting that into kind of the assessments that you give these young people?
Yeah. And any career coaching we're doing, we're talking about the 5 layers of why and kind of peeling back the onion of, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to start a business. Why? Well, because I want, more freedom. Why? Why do you want the freedom? So that I can travel. Why do you want to travel? I want to see the world. And you got to keep going to the end of that, thought and dig really deep to figure out what's really driving this. Like, what do you really, really want? And if there's not clarity, that's something I talk about the book Accountability. If there's not really specific clarity on the goal, it's really hard to execute a plan that's going to work because you're always executing towards something that you don't really want. You want some of it, but you want it for other reasons. I think clarity on the goal is so critical. Really understanding why you want that thing. Like, I want to make more money. Do you really want to make more money, or do you just think you want to make money? And once you ask those questions and take time to process it, you get a lot more clear you're trying to achieve. And then the AI piece, I do think it's a tremendous tool. It's a powerful accelerator of what you can do in your current role or in a new role or to create a role. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. I agree that there's more opportunity now than there's ever been.
Yeah, I want to talk about AI in a bit, but let's go back to the word clarity. It's like one of my magic words here. I mean, again, we talk like a lot of my listeners are not in their 20s. They're in their 40s and 50s. They're midlife, mid-professional. They may have kids who are dealing with entering the workforce and trying to figure out how to coach them and help them, enter into a very rapidly changing workforce. But my pitch is always the same. Whether you're starting out or whether you're mid-career, take some time to get clarity. Now, that coaching technique that you just gave of like the 5 whys, it's something that I do with all my clients. Keep asking them why. Why do you want that? And it's very interesting because it reveals the layers and it helps an individual actually sense into the why, because a lot of times, oh, I just want a lot of money is what people say. Here's my experience, Sean, is that a lot of my clients in my world, people are in their 40s and 50s, and they've woken up into this reality where maybe they've made some really great money. Maybe they have some stature in their career, right? But they're incredibly burned out or they're being shown the door, which is really tough. And now they're like, well, what do I do? And do I even want to go back and try to find something else on LinkedIn that has given me energetic diminishing returns, right? And so, the question of getting clarity, and infusing that into the younger people is more important right now than ever. And I want to actually find out about what you're doing with the business that you're in right now, that you're running. And actually, before you jump in, I want to frame it a particular way. So I had talked to Bill Burnett, who runs the Designing Your Life Institute at Stanford University. I mean, he's a big guy. He's written a big best-selling book called Designing Your Life. It's a big deal. It's a lot about what we talk about on the show with reinvention. And he said last year to me that, look, the future is going to have a lot of folks going back to the liberal arts majors in college, which was surprising because it's so math and science and engineering focused, but that's being changed. And the careers are going to change, that there's going to be a resurgence in, more artistic things and things that are different and writers and things like that. And it's hard to like really swallow that because the first question is, yeah, right. Like, how are we all going to make money, doing those things? Talk to me about your business. What are you actually doing? What are you helping these younger people do? And what kind of success have you seen? Because I think it's relevant right now more than ever.
It's been pretty incredible. So the last several years, we've really transformed a lot of how we do things. So we take students, they know what they're signing up for. They're signing up to run a house painting business during the spring and summer of college. So during the spring semester, they're going to go through training and work part-time to gain clients and do some marketing and sales. And they're going to do everything from knock on doors to social media, calling past customers of the companies to follow up and see if they want to work with us. And then in the summer, they're going to work full-time and manage crews. So they get to train and supervise employees and learn how to manage the profitability and the customer service and job safety. And they're really doing this really entrepreneurial experience within a business where they have insurance and they use our funding. So they're not going into debt. So they're not truly entrepreneurs, but it's an extremely entrepreneurial role within a business. The other piece to the promise is that we're going to help coach and mentor them and help them become successful in the future. So I describe my job when I'm talking to a random stranger on an airplane that I'm like a college sports coach. I'm like the Nick Saban who's trying to recruit really talented people, work with them for like 1 to 4 years and prepare them for the pros in the hopes, they'll be the first round draft pick. And then we get to brag about them later and have them on our podcast to talk to them about how they did it and what they learned. So that's kind of a little bit about the business. At the end of the season, myself and our CEO and a lot of our executive team spends a lot of time one-on-one with these people trying to figure out, so what's next? You've put yourself through this 6-month kind of boot camp, done all this work, had to learn from failures and successes and challenges. And what did you learn about yourself? And where do you think you want to go, in the future? And I do hear a lot of, I don't know, I don't know. I think I might do this or that. And we talked to them about, that's where you got to start, where you have to aim in some direction. Even if you're going to deviate from that plan, if you come up with a 10-year or 20-year plan, there will be some pivots for sure. Just like any startup pivots, business pivots, but you need at least a direction. I love the quote about if you don't have a direction you're aimed in, then no wind is a beneficial wind for your sales, right? There's a more eloquent version of it somewhere, but you need a direction to go in so you can figure out, is this a headwind that's really going to help me or hurt me in achieving what I want to achieve? So once we do that, and we try to help them with some basic stuff, disc tests, looking at what is your personality a good match for? You might think you want to be in a STEM career, but turns out your personality is like a complete clash with that, and you're going to be really unhappy. And you might just be attracted to it because it sounds maybe more job security or more lucrative. The reality is you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to be good at it. So we start with who they are. There's tons of free personality tests out there. We happen to use the DISC profile, but there's a lot of other great ones. And I think that was also a monumental shift in my career. Is I had a coach took me through about 20 different personality tests and helped do a full workup on me of what am I really good at and what am I drawn to. So that's a big part. And then we try to point them in the right direction.
It almost sounds like a modern day MBA program, in a way. It's an interesting business model, right? So you're taking in these kind of younger people, right? And then you're putting them through a boot camp, like you said, for a while. And then they're working with you like more hardcore during the summer, it sounds like. And then continuing, you're teaching them entrepreneurship, you're teaching them sales, you're teaching them a bunch of things to prepare them for, going out into the real world, where maybe some of them will end up working for your company or some affiliate or something like that. Very, very interesting. I think it's a mindset shift in terms of like, oh, I'm going to go get an MBA or go to law school and like learn other things. This to me sounds more like modern day, like the things that we should be learning, because you're teaching them the human skills, the soft skills that are very important no matter what AI and technology does. And I want to talk about these soft skills, right? So in all your experience of training these young people, and this is very relevant for people that are older as well, I want you to really pay attention because these are the things that matter right now. How do we train ourselves? What are the most important skills and traits and qualities right now in this crazy world we're living in with AI? Like, what are you seeing the people that come through your program, like in terms of the most success that they get out of it? Like, what are they great at? Is it sales? Is it, customer support? Is it organization? Or is it using AI tools? Like, what are they doing really well that are setting themselves up for big success later on?
A lot of those things, for sure. I mean, they're good at sales, but time management, how you prioritize your time and what's worth your time, I think is critical in every career at every stage. We teach them that there's 10 problems, and they're either problems that you experience just in this business. So our business is called CollegeWorks. So like, you're going to think that these are CollegeWorks problems. And then you're going to find out in your career that these are just problems that you experience in every industry and every business. So one of them is having too many things to do and not enough time to do. How do I prioritize? How do I get it all done? And that's a skill. Most things are skills. Most things you can learn. You can learn motivation. You can learn organization. You can learn communication and sales. Identifying that these are just problems I'm going to encounter everywhere. And one of the problems right now is AI is going to take my job, or AI is going to improve the efficiency of my business and eliminates people. Well, that's either a problem or an opportunity to harness it and be on the cutting edge and use it to do what you want to do. Things like not enough time. One thing we talk about is managing others. Managing others is always going to feel like the people that you're managing are not quite as good as you. Maybe they're not as motivated or as knowledgeable or as talented. And I'm sure you probably had that experience, Todd, where you're like, why don't they just, why don't they think like I do? And the reality is, well, if they did, they would be in your role, right? And everybody's had a superstar that they've managed that really quickly wants to be at your level, and they want to figure out, how do I get promoted? Or I'm going to start my own business. Or even when you're lucky enough to be managing somebody who's as talented as you, or as motivated as you, it's not for long, because they're going to outgrow your leadership. So that means that whether you're 20 managing somebody painting houses over the summer, or whether you're in your 40s managing a bunch of people at the accounting firm, everyone you're always going to manage in your career is going to be a little less competent and qualified as you. And you have to learn how to deal with it. How do I manage people who aren't at my level? And I'm sure the CEO of a Fortune 500 business probably thinks, why is the CFO such an idiot? That they would be the CEO if they were capable of doing that. So time, employees, customers, there's a whole list we could go through if we wanted to, but
I love it.
I think recognizing that these are just problems you're going to face in just about every industry, in just about every role, and learning how to overcome them is going to make you someone who is kind of unstoppable.
I love that. And the work that I do a lot of executive coaching with CEOs. They could be founders, they could be larger companies or executive level people. And it's always the same. It's those very things that, we deal with, which is just the ability to recognize that people are just different than you are. And your greatest ability to succeed is the ability to listen, right? To really listen, to slow down, and actually understand and take it in so you can make smart decisions. It's not always a perfect decision, but these are the types of skills that I love to teach. Talk to me about the word accountability. I know that's like a big word for you, and I want to kind of dive in like by what you mean by that. And again, let's wear the lens of, my audience here, which are mid-career professionals, kind of like really busy at jobs, got a big life going on, maybe looking to make a change, maybe has kids that are younger that are dealing with some of the, stuff that you're talking about here. Let's talk about accountability. What does that mean to you? And like, why is this a very valuable quality that we all should be adopting more and more?
So accountability, first thing you need to do is get somebody to hold you accountable. Whoever that is, whether that's the person at work that mentors you, that you look up to, or that role you want to be at, somebody at a different company that you want to get to where they are. But it's finding somebody that will actually hold you accountable. I think people might attempt to hold themselves accountable. It's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. So the book I'm working on is something I developed throughout my career because I struggled with it a lot. As a leader, everyone told me, you're really good at teaching people, you're really good at relationships, but you're bad at accountability. And you need to hold people more accountable. I got to hold them more accountable, And I thought accountability meant kind of yelling at someone and telling them why they stink or why they did a bad job, or, holding their feet to the fire. And that's what my interpretation was. So I tried that first. First, I just tried to be a jerk, and it didn't work. Right? People discouraged, they gave up, they quit, found a different job. They complained about me as a boss, and it wasn't working. So I'd go back to my just being super nice all the time. And then somebody'd say, you're still not holding people accountable. You're not getting the best. So I went on this deep dive search, and I read about every book you possibly read. Probably my favorite one, if somebody's interested, is The Carrot Principle. I remember the authors, but The Carrot Principle is an awesome book. I read Radical Candor. And what I figured out was, if you break the word into two parts, account and ability, it's an ability to give an account. And this is something my parents did an awesome job as parents. Whenever something went wrong, if I got a bad grade, made a mess of the house, and they came home, the first question they would ask is, what happened? And then I had to give an account. Well, this is what happened. I screwed up. And then some more questions, right? Why'd you screw up? What happened that caused you to screw up? What were you thinking when you made the screw up? And then I had to explain what was going on. And so what I learned is that to hold people accountable wasn't about telling them they're failing or telling them where their shortcomings are. It's literally just asking them, what did you want to have happened? What actually happened? What's the delta between those two? And where is that difference? Is it skill? Is it effort? If it's effort, was it in your control? Was it out of your control? Tornado come through town and you couldn't do stuff that day? Or was it something that was totally in your control and you decided not to do it? Okay, why? And it's just a pattern of consistency, weekly or monthly or quarterly, giving them the opportunity to say, here's what happened. Giving their account, like you would in a courtroom, like we heard an account from the witness. And when they give an account and then they know that it's a consistent habit of I have to give an account again next week about what I did, pretty soon those gaps start to be filled. They start to understand where the gaps were and how to get the resources. And your job as a coach or person holding them accountable becomes, how do I give them the tools to succeed? I could go on all day about that, Todd, but I've got a new definition and a new way of looking at it that's really changed my career and helped me tremendous.
Yeah, it sounds like a judgmentalist way to allow people to just give an account. Like, okay, and there isn't the necessity to tell them it's right or wrong. It just gives them kind of an open space. And this is what great managers do, is what great executives do and leaders do, is just give them a place to process and hear it out, and allow them to come to conclusions before being told exactly what to do.
Goes back to that clarity on the goal we were talking about earlier of like, what do you really want? Why do you want? And you can't really start holding somebody accountable until you have clarity on the goal. Sometimes the first couple of repetitions of it, it's, well, I didn't hit the goal because I didn't really care because that's not really my goal. And so once you narrow down, this is actually what I really want. I really want to achieve these sales so that I can get this promotion, and I want this promotion because of X, or I really want to grow the company so that we can hire more people because I want to hire my friend. They need a job right now. Once you really understand what they want, then I think it's so much easier to hold somebody accountable to that.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think the disease that we're encountering, many of them in our society, but it's lack of clarity. People just don't know what they want. And there's a lot of fear of looking towards that, right? That's why we seek distraction, or we seek success, or things that kind of tell us, oh, we're doing okay. Or we just don't want to ask ourselves that big question. I mean, most people just don't know what they want to do at the end of the day. And now in this world that is radically changing with AI, it's even harder because it feels more like a moving target than ever before, right? Like, I want to do this, but in 5 years, what is this world even going to be like? Does it even make sense for me to get this clarity that you keep touting when the world is going to change? Do you ever encounter that? I'm curious. How do you encounter or deal with the fact that things are changing really fast, but you're still wanting to help people get that clarity? Like, talk to me about that juxtaposition, because it's something that I deal with in coaching, where people are like, well, God, I'm spending all this time getting clarity, but why am I even doing that when we don't even know what's happening? How do you hold that?
Yeah. If you just take that to the extreme. So one thing I like to do with myself and others is take whatever you're talking about to the nth degree, right? Times 10 or 100 and take it to the absolute extreme. So the extreme is AI is going to take over everything, and then robots are going to do every job, and we're all just going to get universal and nothing matters. Well, then I guess you can, if you have enough saved to just survive the next 5 years and hope that the government takes care of you after that, then go for it, I guess. I mean, if that's up to you. But personally, I'm not willing to make that bet. Personally, I know that there's going to be an opportunity for me. There's going to be a role for me. And that's a really doomsday perspective. Now, on the other extreme, if we go to the extreme of AI is never going to work, nobody's going to use it. I tried ChatGPT once and it gave me a weird answer. That's also a little bit ignorant and unrealistic as well. So, reality is going to be somewhere in the middle. And the reality is it's going to be a pretty powerful tool that can accelerate what you do, and you can do twice as much work in the same amount of time, or 10 times as much work in the same amount of time. And the more you learn how to harness it as a tool, use it as a weapon for good, a weapon for achieving, success, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So thank you for giving me a beautiful answer on that. I'm actually curious about some of the success stories of some of these younger people, that have come through your program. What actually happens? Give me one or two that come to mind, success stories, because I know there's listeners out there that are thinking, well, this is cool. They're doing something different. They're teaching, younger people entrepreneurship, right? They're teaching them to think differently. Even when you talk about managing others, that's a very powerful skill to be able to learn, even at an older age, right? Managing people. But talk to me about some of the things that actually happen, in a really positive way for these folks that come through your program.
It's hard to narrow it down to just a couple. I can think of just a couple specific stories that really stand out. There's a lot of really cool ones. One recent example, there's a woman named Hannah Perez. Hannah was just named to the Forbes under 30 list. She's the co-founder of Seek, SEEQ. It's a protein brand. She's out in LA now where you are, and she's crushing it. Her proteins, the fast protein powder on TikTok. She's in Walmart. She's in Target stores. And the business started about 5 years ago. So in college, she went to Mankato State University, which is part of the Minnesota education system. I don't remember what her major was, but I know it wasn't business. And this is exactly what we were talking about before. Somebody, when you really peel back their goals and go, well, why are you studying education? Oh, I want freedom. Like, why do you want to teach? And it narrowed down to, well, actually, I want to do business. Through this little business, in a $90,000 house painting business over the summer in 2018, turned into, I think I really want to do business. I'm going to go get some more business experiences, and then turned into, I'm launching my own brand, and I'm going to use the skills I learned to scale and grow business. We've got a watch company out of Fort Collins, Colorado, started by some of our Penn State alumni. There's a massive company that works with apparel and graphic design that does a lot of stuff in the college NIL world based out of Champaign, Illinois. They make most of the merchandise for a lot of the Big Ten and SEC schools. We've got alumni in corporate America, partners at all the major accounting firms, financial advising firms, investment banks, Google, and pretty much everywhere. But the entrepreneurial ones are my favorite stories to tell because I think it's really cool when somebody creates something from nothing and makes it really successful.
Yeah, I love that. I'm actually curious. We got to ask you kind of a tough question because I think when you talk about what you all do, and you're seeding these young professionals to be successful, thinking in a very modern way, entrepreneurial, and I'm sure there's like so many success stories. I'm actually curious, have you ever encountered people that are midlife professionals who are having to think about reinventing themselves? And obviously they're not going to come into your program. It isn't appropriate, but I'm sure you have coached and helped others that are further along in their careers. How do you help them, or how would you help them learn how to be more entrepreneurial or to think a little bit more outside of the box about their future? Like if they're not in their 20s, but they're in their 40s. Okay. I'm actually just curious what you would say to that. Like how do you help somebody reinvent that's a little bit older and they're not going to go all the way back and join College Works, but they're in a boat where they need to think about reinventing. What would you say?
It's the same as much as it's a different audience and a different, decision-making factors, right? And the college students have lots of decisions. I would rather just have fun in school. I'd rather just study abroad and be in a fraternity. And why do I need to put in all this extra work? Why don't I just enjoy life and then I'll worry about it later? And I think the mid-career professionals have the same experience too of like, well, I could just keep the job that I'm not super satisfied or fulfilled with. And, I got kids and I got other things to do. And there's a lot of things pulling at me. So I'll just stay where I'm at and it won't be that bad. It never gets better though. So I think the first thing is you got to create a sense of urgency with yourself of, I can't keep doing this. I have to recognize a need to separate myself, from where I'm at and where I want to be to force action. Now, does that mean, turning your resignation tomorrow and credit cards? No, but start with recognizing I have to make a change and I have to do it now. And the longer I wait, the longer I prolong the current state, right? The longer it takes me to get to where I want to go. And for the students, I tell students that are not willing to make that commitment, maybe they have the skills to do it, but they think, well, my friends are just going to take it easy. I'm going to take it easy too. I go, hey, somebody else out there is going to outwork. So You're going to have to accept mediocrity or you're going to have to take on the challenge. I've seen it with friends. I've seen it with at the venture capital backed startup. We had a lot of older career professionals that had changed careers and come into the startup. So that's maybe an encouragement. My mom made a career change in her 50s into the startup world. She was a nurse for 30 plus years. I went from nursing to Silicon Valley health technology remote work. And it wound up being the best thing that ever happened to her career. Yeah. I should have put that in the notes for us, but
let's get her on the show, man. I mean, this is a great story. Yeah.
Yeah. And that turned into a roller coaster, right? The company got acquired. Her stock options were worth a ton of money. Then the company got divested and the stock options were worthless, but she'd met all these amazing people and found another new career. And so I think the longer you keep going, I want some to change. Eventually you just got to decide I'm going to make that change. And now I need to figure out the next steps. And that's a discussion. What are the next steps? How do I start skilling up? Or what I did when I wanted to work in venture capital, I just moonlighted and I kind of did it on the side for a little while until I had proven myself enough that they would, give me the full-time roles.
Love it. So let's talk about AI for a moment. And a lot of the guests that I have on, the kind of universal theme that I'm getting when I talk to all different kind of people, especially people that are really out there successful in the tech business world, they're like, adoption is key, staying in it, using the tools, like getting involved, no matter what you're doing, use them and be a part of the wave, wherever the wave wants to go, just be a part of it. Don't sit on the sidelines. I think you're have a similar philosophy from our pre-conversation, but talk to me about what you're seeing out there right now, because you're more of a blue collar, right, painting houses business,
Yeah.
but you said you're using AI. Like, talk to me about what you're actually doing. How are you integrating the tools in a non-tech company?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You would think that with a business where it's, very blue collar, very, person to person sales and manual labor, that it would be the furthest thing from AI. And yet it's something we're really focused on. We're really focused on how do we leverage it? How do we learn it, implement it in our business? And I had the privilege of being on a podcast a couple of weeks ago where that was the entire subject of the show. And the scary thing I heard from one of the AI consultants was pretty much all knowledge work is going to be automatable within the next couple of years. So if your job entails, filling out a form or reading a report and then spitting out some output, it's probably going to get automated. So you can either become the person who knows how to do that, how to help with the automation process, and then work on other new endeavors within the business, or you probably won't have a role. So we've kind of created that sense of urgency ourselves, of scaring ourselves of, I think my job is going to be unnecessary in 1 or 2 years, unless I can figure out how to automate enough of my job that I'm the guy that people come to go, how do I automate my job? And then I can be the person who has a new role that maybe is still the same title, but it's what I do day to day is changing. It's not just making the same reports. It's understanding how to leverage technology. I can get really into the weeds with that. So agents, skills. So just to give the listeners a couple of quick, simple things, I would start following and reading about some AI. So I signed up for a couple of newsletters and listened to a couple of podcasts that are in that general genre. I like the Neuron, but I get a daily email. I read it. I find out. And it's really interesting is that like every day it changes, right? So one day Google's on top and the next day Claude's on top. What I've noticed just from following those over the last 6 months is that there's no point in really learning one, because almost every week a different one is kind of the way of the future. And so they're going to change rapidly. And then step two, once you just started learning about it, just start playing with it and play with it I use it for personal things all the time in my family vacations. AI, play my current diet and recipes. It's really good. So I try to use it a lot in my own life. And then I see places and intersections in my career where I think, oh, maybe AI could help me make this better, or do it faster. And then I'll start playing with it. That's kind of the third step, right? So step one, just get familiar. Step two, play around with it for yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing people are missing. They use it at work and then they put it down. Like my sister about that, where she used it at work, but she doesn't use it at all for her personal life. Like, why would you not use the productivity tool that's going to help you do all the things you want to do faster and better? And then maybe use it at work secondary to that. You're benefiting your employer with your skills of it, but you're not benefiting yourself. So step two, use it for your own life. And then step three, figure out how you can use it at work.
Yeah, I mean, the skills that are going to be important to thrive in the future are changing. Like our interaction with AIs is a huge part of the future. And we don't know what that actually means. And I've interviewed some really forward thinkers here on the show that are like Silicon Valley insiders that their reality is very different than mine, and even though I'm very much using these tools every day, personally and professionally, like the way that they think about it and talk about it is just different. And I'm like, wow, it's almost like shocking when you hear. But one thing is certain is that, the way that we operate in the world is changing. The way that humans are interacting is going to change, and the AI will change. The AIs will change. The way that we interact with agents or the different tools will evolve and consolidate and all this. But the point is, and I love that you're doing this as well, is get involved, use the tools, like don't be on the side. I think the winners will be the ones that adopt and engage and say yes, not out of fear that this is going to replace, but that my understanding of this will help me thrive in the future. And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Absolutely. And I have concerns about the data centers and the water and all the stuff that everybody else does. I think those are going to be solved. I think the technology will improve to solve those downsides and concerns that AI has. But it's going to be something that, we're going to use, and it's going to be tremendous. It's like electricity just got invented. If you're still trying to figure out how to, make and sell candles, it's time to upskill and learn about electricity. It's going to be unbelievable.
I'm gonna say, man, I've really enjoyed having you on the show. I think what you're doing, in so many ways represents reinvention. The idea of training younger people to think more entrepreneurially, getting them into a business, teaching them stuff. Also, just like the painting, physical labor. For me, I've done episodes on the show, which is like, what is the future of work and what are people going to be doing? Like, I actually think businesses like what you do are very high growth areas. I think that anything that brings people together as well, community oriented, events oriented. I think a lot of what you're doing has a huge upside. And I wanted to bring you on the show for that reason, because I think people have to think more outside of the box about what success actually is for human beings. And I think in a lot of ways, you all are representing that. And I can't wait for your book. Let me know when it's released. We'll get it out to everybody. And I just really enjoyed having you on the show, Sean.
Enjoyed it too, Tom. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Be good.